The clock on the peeling kitchen wall blinked 2:47 a.m., each red number glowing like a warning. Jasmine Harper pressed a trembling hand against her forehead, trying to steady the rising panic. Her apartment was quiet, except for the occasional creak of the radiator and the faint whimpering of her 6-month-old son Eli in his crib. She couldn't believe she'd let this happen. Again. The baby formula canister sat on the counter, mocking her. Empty, nothing but a few stubborn crumbs clinging to the bottom. She had searched every aisle at the grocery store earlier, but they'd sold out of the brand Eli could tolerate. Her phone battery had died halfway through the search, cutting off her lifeline to the world outside. And now she was trapped in the tiny apartment, with a hungry, crying infant whose wails clawed at her heart. Jasmine's chest tightened. "It's okay, Eli," she whispered, rocking him in her arms. "Mommy's figuring it out. Mommy always figures it out." She tried to sound convincing, but even her own words felt brittle. A sudden memory hit her, an old flyer she had tucked into her purse a week ago. "Emergency aid contact. Call if in crisis." She dug frantically through the cluttered bag, tossing aside crumpled receipts, empty snack wrappers, and a lone pacifier. Her hand closed around the flyer. The number printed on it was smudged, the ink faded from rain and months of wear. She didn't care. With shaking fingers, she dialed. "Hello?" A calm, measured voice answered on the third ring. Jasmine froze. The voice was not what she expected. Hi, I need formula for my baby." Her words stumbled over one another. There was a pause, then a dry chuckle. "You've reached me? Are you sure this isn't— Please, I don't have anyone else. He's hungry. I don't— Please." Jasmine's voice cracked. She tried to swallow back the tears, but they came anyway. "I don't know what else to do." "I see." The voice softened slightly, but the undertone of disbelief remained. "Where are you?" Jasmine rattled off the address, biting her lip. She felt ridiculous. Who was she even calling? This was supposed to be a local aid number. She hadn't realized she'd misdialed. There was another pause. Then, unexpectedly, "I'll be there in 30 minutes. Jasmine blinked. "What?" "I'll handle it," the voice said simply. "Don't leave your apartment." The line went dead before she could respond. For a moment, Jasmine sat frozen, her mind whirling. She couldn't even process it. The flyer, maybe it wasn't for this person at all. Maybe she'd called a stranger. Maybe she'd called a billionaire. The thought hit her like a punch to the stomach. A billionaire, who probably had no interest in helping a struggling single mother with a crying baby. She laughed bitterly. A hollow, desperate sound. "I'm losing it," she muttered, pacing the small living room. "He's probably laughing at me right now. Some rich guy, thinking this is a prank call." But she had no other choice. Eli's cries grew louder, sharper, and the sight of her son's tiny fists pounding the air drove her desperation higher. She sank to the floor beside the crib, clutching him tightly. "Please, please, please," she whispered, "just—" "Let someone help." Half an hour later, there was a knock. It was sharp, precise, deliberate. Not the timid knock of a neighbor, but something else. Jasmine's heart pounded in her chest. She opened the door slowly. Standing there was a man in a tailored suit, impossibly tall, with eyes that seemed to look right through her. His hair was streaked with silver, and his posture radiated quiet power. He held a small bag in one hand. "You called me," he said, voice calm but commanding. "I brought what you need." Jasmine gaped. She wanted to ask how he knew exactly what to bring, but the words caught in her throat. She couldn't stop staring at him. The kind of man who could command boardrooms, headlines and entire industries with a single glance. Yet here he was, standing on her shabby apartment threshold, holding a bag of baby formula like it was the most natural thing in the world. I didn't mean to bother you," she stammered. I thought I was calling a local aid service." He smiled faintly, an expression that didn't reach his eyes entirely. "Mistakes happen. What matters is Eli gets fed." Jasmine's breath caught. You didn't have to." "I did," he said simply. "Now, let's get him fed." As she carried Eli to the living room, the weight of the moment pressed down on her. She didn't know this man. She didn't know why he had agreed to help. But something about the way he moved, calm, deliberate, patient, made her feel, for the first time in weeks, that maybe everything was going to be okay, the billionaire, whose name she would soon learn was Alexander Cross, stayed silently as she prepared the formula. When Eli finally latched and began sucking eagerly, his small cries turning into contented coos, Jasmine let out a shaky laugh. "Thank you," she whispered, more to herself than to him. "I don't even know how to—" "You'll figure it out," Alexander said. "You're stronger than you think." Jasmine looked up at him, startled. There was no condescension, no judgment, just a quiet acknowledgement, a recognition that cut through all her shame and fear. And in that instant, something shifted. What had begun as a desperate mistake, a misdial, a panic call, felt like the first thread of a lifeline. Little did she know, this unexpected response would unravel a chain of events that neither of them could have predicted. Her crisis had found its unexpected savior. And for the first time in a long while, Jasmine dared to hope. Alexander Cross watched the city from the sleek black car as it hummed silently through the nearly empty streets. Streetlights glimmered against the wet asphalt, reflecting in scattered puddles from a brief, restless rain. His mind, usually consumed with board meetings, mergers, and endless spreadsheets, had something else entirely on it tonight. He replayed the call in his head. A frantic woman, her voice cracking, begging for help with her infant. He hadn't expected it to be so urgent, and yet there was something in her desperation that lingered. Something raw, human, and unpolished that made him pause in a way he hadn't experienced in years. Normally, people called his office asking for investments, favors, or introductions. They rarely asked for help with formula for a baby. Alexander had a reputation for ruthlessness in business, decisions made with precision, no room for sentiment. Yet something compelled him to pick up that call tonight. Perhaps it was the randomness of it, or perhaps it was a reminder of a life long left behind. A life before power and money dictated every heartbeat. He glanced at the bag beside him, the small bundle of formula cans and baby supplies he had hand-selected. Not the generic brands, but the type he remembered from years ago. He had spent hours researching what would be suitable for a newborn with sensitive digestion. Yes, he could have sent a driver with a generic package, but he wanted to do it right for her. When he arrived at the apartment building, the city seemed quieter than usual. Even the neon signs looked muted, as if they sensed something about to change. He pressed the call button for the unit Jasmine had given him, and the door buzzed open with a soft click. Ascending the stairs, he wondered why he felt this strange anticipation. It was unlike anything in his meticulously scheduled life. When he finally reached the apartment door and knocked, he saw her, frazzled, pale, yet undeniably strong in her frailty. Her eyes widened, a mixture of disbelief, fear, and relief. "You came," she whispered, as though saying it aloud made it real. "I did," Alexander replied, his voice calm, though he noticed the way she studied him, trying to read his intentions. "I don't usually do this, but tonight I thought it might be worth it." She hesitated, then stepped aside. "Come in, please." "You don't know how much this means." Alexander entered. The apartment smelled faintly of detergent and baby powder, a mixture of normalcy and struggle. The faint hum of the radiator, the scattered toys, and the worn furniture told him more about her life than any introduction ever could. Jasmine busied herself with Eli, preparing the formula. He watched quietly, noticing her meticulous attention to detail despite her obvious exhaustion. Her hands trembled slightly, but there was grace in the motion, an instinctive competence that came from sheer necessity. "You're very good with him," he observed, his tone neutral, almost analytical. But it wasn't lost on him that she looked at him, eyes narrowing slightly, unsure whether he was mocking or complimenting. I have to be," she said quietly. "He's all I have." Alexander felt a pang he hadn't expected, a tightness in his chest, a tug at a part of him he'd long buried. "I understand more than you know," he admitted, surprising himself. "Life has a way of forcing responsibility on you before you're ready." Jasmine looked up, startled. I don't know you." "Why are you helping me? You don't even know me." He shrugged, a gesture that belied the gravity of his decision. "Perhaps I see something familiar." A struggle I once knew, or maybe I just believe no child should go hungry. Her eyes glistened, and she quickly looked away, embarrassed. Alexander remained silent, giving her the space to continue. As Eli drank the formula, his cries fading into contented coos, Alexander observed the rhythm of the small apartment. Every corner told a story, hand-drawn scribbles taped to the wall, tiny socks drying on the radiator, a tattered blanket folded carefully in the corner. He realized he was intruding on a life that had endured far more than he had imagined, and yet, despite all the struggle, there was resilience. For the first time in a long while, Alexander felt human. You don't usually invite strangers into your life, Jasmine said quietly, almost to herself. I don't, he replied. But tonight you're not a stranger anymore. You're someone who needed help, and I couldn't say no. She glanced at him, hesitation and curiosity warring in her expression. Why, really? I mean, you could have sent a driver or ignored the call entirely. Why come yourself? He considered his answer carefully, because sometimes the direct approach is the only way to understand the reality. I've spent my life dealing with numbers, contracts, and projections. Tonight, I wanted to see the human side, yours. There was a long pause. Jasmine studied him, searching for a hint of ulterior motive, some hidden agenda. But she saw none. Only an odd, calm, quiet authority and a surprising sense of sincerity. You're not like anyone I've ever met, she said finally. Most people in your position, they'd never care. Alexander's lips twitched into a faint smile. Perhaps that's true. But most people don't get calls at 2 a.m. from someone desperate for formula. And most people don't get the chance to make a real difference in someone's life. Jasmine laughed softly, shaking her head. I don't even know your name. Alexander Cross, he said simply. And you are? Jasmine. Jasmine Harper, she replied. Jasmine, he repeated, testing the sound. It was soft, grounded, real. Everything his world of boardrooms and power lunches was not. The night stretched on as they sat in silence, watching Eli drift into a peaceful sleep. Alexander didn't leave. He felt compelled to stay, not because he had to, but because somehow this small apartment, this small life, had anchored him in ways his penthouse never could. Finally, Jasmine spoke again. You didn't have to stay. You could go. You're a billionaire. You have everything. I have enough, he said quietly. Sometimes enough is simply the chance to do the right thing. And in that quiet moment, something shifted between them. Something unspoken. A fragile connection born of desperation, kindness, and the unexpected collision of two lives from completely different worlds. Neither knew what would happen next. But one thing was certain. The night had started with a crisis. But it had ended with something far more complicated, far more real, and far more. The morning sun filtered through the thin curtains of Jasmine Harper's apartment, casting a pale glow on the cluttered living room. Eli cooed softly in his crib, the steady rhythm of his tiny breaths filling the quiet space. Jasmine moved with careful precision, preparing a bottle, her mind still spinning from last night's unexpected visitor. Alexander Cross had left before dawn, as silently as he had arrived, leaving behind only a small note on her kitchen counter. Call me if you ever need help. Alexander. She had read it a dozen times, each pass making her heart pound a little faster. He was a stranger, yet his actions had left an imprint, an undeniable weight of curiosity and confusion. Why had he really come? Why did he care? Questions she wasn't ready to ask. Her phone buzzed, dragging her back to reality. A text from her sister faintly panicked. Did you get any formula yet? Mom called. I'm worried about Eli. Jasmine swallowed, thinking of last night, of Alexander's calm presence, of the way he had handled Eli with such ease. She typed a quick reply, yes, I'm okay. Everything's fine. The day progressed slowly, her mind oscillating between mundane chores and the memory of the billionaire who had walked into her life. She couldn't stop replaying his voice, the quiet authority that seemed to fill the room without effort. By afternoon, her relief was short-lived. The doorbell rang, abrupt and insistent. Her heart raced, visitors were rare. Opening the door, she froze. Standing there was not Alexander, but two men in black suits, sunglasses obscuring their expressions, briefcases in hand. Ms. Harper. One-asked voice clipped, professional. Yes. Who? We represent Mr. Alexander Cross. May we come in? Her pulse quickened. Something about their precision, their demeanor, screamed of serious business. Not a social visit. She stepped aside, tension curling in her stomach like a storm about to break. Inside, they spoke quickly, professionally, eyes never leaving hers. Mr. Cross requests your immediate attention. There is a matter of urgency regarding Eli's well-being. Jasmine blinked, confusion mingling with panic. What do you mean? Eli is fine. He's sleeping. They cannot explain in detail over the phone, the other said. He asks you to come to his office, now. Something didn't feel right, and yet the sense of urgency, the implicit authority in their voices, left her with little choice. Gathering Eli in his car seat, she stepped outside. The city streets were bustling, indifferent to the drama unfolding in her small life. The black SUV waited, engine running, like a predator poised to pounce. Inside, she was quiet, gripping the edge of her seat. The driver, unassuming and silent, didn't make conversation. Her mind raced. Why would Alexander call her to his office? Did something happen to Eli? Was this dangerous? The SUV pulled up to a towering skyscraper, glass reflecting sunlight in harsh, dazzling brilliance. The building screamed power, authority, and wealth, the exact antithesis of her tiny, cluttered apartment. Jasmine's hands tightened on the straps of Eli's car seat, the baby stirring slightly at the unfamiliar surroundings. Alexander met them in the lobby, immaculately dressed, hair slicked back, and expression unreadable. But there was something different about him today, less distant, more personal. Jasmine, he said simply as if he'd been expecting her. Thank you for coming. She hesitated, uncertainty brimming. You said something about Eli? Alexander's eyes softened as he gestured for her to follow. Come. He led her through a private elevator, up to the top floors of the building, where the city sprawled endlessly beneath them. The office was modern, sleek, with sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. But what caught Jasmine's attention was the room behind Alexander's desk, a small nursery, immaculate, with everything a newborn could need. Eli? She whispered, eyes wide. Alexander nodded. We've taken precautions. There's been a situation with a batch of formula being recalled nationwide. It's not safe. I wanted to make sure Eli has everything he needs, without risk. The realization hit Jasmine like a wave. Her heart swelled, not just with relief, but with an unexpected rush of gratitude and confusion. A billionaire, a man whose life was worlds apart from hers, had gone to such lengths. I don't know what to say, she stammered, holding Eli closer. You don't have to say anything, Alexander replied. Just know he's safe. That's enough. For a moment they stood in silence, the city below, the hum of the world above, and the tiny baby between them creating an invisible bridge. Then came the knock. Alexander's assistant entered, holding a tablet. Sir, there's a press leak. Someone saw the SUV arriving at Ms. Harper's apartment. It's already trending online, Alexander's jaw tightened. Damn it, not now, Jasmine froze. Trending online? What does that mean? Alexander's eyes met hers, sharp and steady. It means the world now knows I'm involved. It means complications. She felt a chill run down her spine. Her life had been quiet, fragile, contained. Now, suddenly, it was exposed to scrutiny, judgment, curiosity, a world she had no idea how to navigate. Alexander noticed her hesitation. I know it's a lot. I didn't intend for it to happen this way, but you're not alone in this, Jasmine. Not anymore. The words settled over her like a warm, strange comfort. And yet the unspoken question lingered. What does it mean to be not alone with a man whose life could swallow hers whole? Her mind raced as she realized this encounter was no longer just about formula or survival. It was about choices, trust, and the collision of two very different worlds, one fragile, one powerful, and both suddenly intertwined. And as she glanced at Alexander, standing beside the nursery, his eyes betraying a hint of vulnerability she hadn't expected, she knew one thing for certain. Life, as she knew it, had changed forever. The morning sunlight splintered through Jasmine's blinds, but it brought little comfort. Her phone vibrated incessantly, notifications flooding in like a tidal wave. News alerts, social media tags, and messages from strangers, none of them kind. Her private life had been ripped into public view overnight. Billionaire spotted at single mom's apartment with baby. Who is Jasmine Harper? Alexander Cross's latest mystery? Is this the new power couple in the making? Jasmine swiped through the posts with a mixture of horror and disbelief. Her heart pounded, not just for herself, but for Eli. The world she had carefully shielded her son from had shattered in a single day. A knock at the door made her jump. It was her neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, a kindly woman in her 60s, peering in with wide eyes. "Oh, honey," she said gently. "Are you okay? I saw everything online." "I didn't know what to think." Jasmine forced a shaky smile. I'm fine, just trying to handle it." But she wasn't fine. Each post, each comment felt like a spotlight shining directly on her, on Eli. She wasn't ready for this exposure. Not now, not ever. Her phone rang again. This time it was Alexander. "Jasmine," he said, voice calm but urgent. "We need to talk." "Meet me at the office," she hesitated. Part of her wanted to retreat, hide, protect Eli from the storm. But curiosity, coupled with a strange, unexplainable trust in him, pushed her forward. When she arrived, the office felt different today, tense, almost militarized. Alexander was at his desk, but the usual calm he exuded was replaced with a subtle urgency. "We've got a situation," he said, motioning for her to sit. "The media is circling, and with Eli involved, it's delicate." "I need your help," Jasmine frowned. "My help? I'm just a mom. I don't know how I could possibly help." Alexander leaned forward, eyes intense. "You've got something they don't. Perspective, instinct. You understand Eli in ways I never could. And right now that's the most valuable thing in this room." He slid a tablet across the desk. It displayed multiple live feeds, news anchors speculating about their connection, bloggers dissecting every detail of her life, strangers commenting on everything from her apartment to her parenting choices. Jasmine felt the walls closing in. I can't control them. This isn't my world." Alexander's expression softened. "I know, but we can navigate it together. We need to be strategic, protect Eli, and, if possible, control the narrative." The conversation was interrupted by a buzz at the office entrance. A young woman with a press badge peeked in. "Mr. Cross, we have a reporter asking to speak with you and the mother of the baby." Alexander's jaw tightened. "No, not now. Send them away," the assistant nodded, ushering the reporter out, but the tension remained. Jasmine felt the weight of every eye in the world watching her. She held Eli closer, feeling the warmth of his small body and the responsibility crushing her chest. Alexander noticed. "You're doing fine," he said quietly. "I know it doesn't feel like it, but you are." His reassurance made her heart ache in ways she couldn't name. It wasn't just gratitude. There was something deeper, a connection forming under the glare of scrutiny and danger. The next few days blurred together. Alexander had arranged private security, ensured that only trusted media outlets could report verified information, and had even set up a temporary residence for Jasmine and Eli in one of his quieter properties. Yet, despite all precautions, the outside world remained relentless. Social media buzzed with speculation. Photos of her daily life leaked despite efforts to protect her privacy. And every minor misstep became a headline. One evening, as she rocked Eli to sleep in the quiet of the safe house, Alexander appeared at the doorway. He looked different, vulnerable, almost human in a way she hadn't seen before. "Can I come in?" he asked softly. Jasmine nodded, heart thudding. He sat across from her, watching her cradle the baby. "I wasn't always good at this," he admitted, voice low. "I never imagined. Parenthood, care, intimacy in this form. And yet seeing you with him, it changes everything." Jasmine's pulse quickened. I don't know what to say." "Then don't," he replied. "Just let this moment exist." For a brief heartbeat, the world outside faded. The scrutiny, the headlines, the chaos. It was just the three of them, fragile and real. But reality intruded quickly. His phone buzzed with urgent messages. Alexander's face hardened. It's escalating. There's someone trying to manipulate the story, to expose more than they should. I need you to trust me, Jasmine. I can protect you, but I need you to follow my lead. Jasmine swallowed hard, knowing the stakes had shifted. It wasn't just about formula or survival anymore. It was about influence, power, and danger. And through it all, she realized one undeniable truth. She couldn't do this alone. As Alexander's figure receded into the sleek modern office, Jasmine held Eli close and whispered, "Whatever comes next, we'll face it." The night outside was quiet, almost deceivingly calm. But Jasmine knew the storm was only beginning, and the collision of their worlds had set forces in motion that neither she nor Alexander could fully control. And deep down, she understood this. Life as she knew it had irrevocably changed, and with change came risk, revelation, and the thrilling, terrifying promise of the unknown. The morning sun did little to calm Jasmine's nerves. From the window of the safe house, she could see the world outside moving on as if nothing had changed, completely oblivious to the chaos surrounding her life. But inside, everything was spiraling. Her phone buzzed constantly. Messages from reporters, strangers, and friends, all asking the same question. Who is the man in your life? She sat on the edge of the sofa, Eli asleep in her arms, and sighed. How did it get this far? She whispered. A soft knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Alexander stepped inside, calm but carrying the unmistakable tension of a man preparing for battle. We need to leave, he said immediately. Leave? Where? Jasmine asked, startled. To the press conference, he replied, voice low but firm. They're going to try and ambush us. But if we go there together, we can control the narrative and protect Eli. Jasmine's stomach turned. Facing the media sounded like stepping into a lion's den. But Alexander's determined expression left no room for argument. By the time they arrived at the towering glass building, crowds had already gathered. Flashing cameras, shouting reporters, and journalists recording every step made Jasmine's pulse hammer in her chest. She held Eli close, shielding him from the chaos. Alexander guided her through the press throng with the precision of a man used to control. Stay close. Don't answer anything unless I speak, he instructed. They reached the stage just as a particularly aggressive reporter lunged forward with a microphone. Alexander stepped in front of Jasmine, a protective shield of authority and charisma. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, voice commanding. I know there's been a lot of speculation, but it's time you hear the truth from me. The crowd quieted, hanging on his every word. Jasmine felt a flicker of relief. Maybe, just maybe, he could turn this storm in their favor. He spoke of responsibility, of care, of the importance of privacy for children in the public eye. He described Jasmine not as a mere figure in a headline, but as a courageous mother, fighting to give her child the best life possible. Every word was calculated, deliberate, yet heartfelt. The reporters leaned in, captivated. Jasmine's heart swelled with gratitude, and something else she couldn't name, watching Alexander defend her so fiercely, so sincerely. Then just as the tide seemed to turn, a scandalous piece of information hit the room. A tabloid had leaked a photo of a mysterious envelope in Alexander's hand during their last encounter. The journalists' questions shifted instantly, voices overlapping in a cacophony of accusations and speculation. What's in the envelope, Mr. Cross? Is this another secret between you and Ms. Harper? Are you hiding something from the public? Jasmine's stomach sank. The moment she had feared, losing control, was here. She glanced at Alexander, expecting panic, but instead, he held her gaze calmly. Everything you see, he said firmly, is above board. Ms. Harper is my guest, my friend, and above all, a devoted mother. The envelope contains private documents, unrelated to her or Eli, and any speculation is false. The journalists were momentarily stunned by his authority, but the storm wasn't over. Someone from the back shouted, a figure moving fast, a photographer trying to get a close shot. Alexander instinctively stepped forward, protecting Jasmine and Eli, and in that split second, Jasmine realized how dangerous this world really was. Her heart raced as flashes went off in her eyes. For a moment she felt powerless. But then Alexander took her hand, and she felt an unexpected surge of courage. "We're leaving," he said, voice low but firm. Together they pushed through the throng, security clearing the path as they went. Outside, the city seemed quieter than ever, but Jasmine knew the storm had only intensified. The headlines would be worse tomorrow, the questions sharper, and the scrutiny unrelenting. They reached Alexander's car, and as he buckled Eli into a seat beside Jasmine, he looked at her with a rare, vulnerable smile. "You did well," he said quietly. "Most people would have crumbled under that pressure. But you stood tall." Jasmine felt tears sting her eyes. "I couldn't have done it without you," she admitted. He shook his head. "No, you did this. I just helped you survive it." The ride back was quiet, filled only with the soft hum of the engine and Eli's occasional coos. Jasmine stared out the window, contemplating the collision of her two worlds, the ordinary life she once led, and the extraordinary chaos she now faced. By the time they arrived at the safe house, night had fallen. Jasmine tucked Eli into bed, brushing his hair back gently. She sat on the edge of the crib, feeling the weight of the day settle on her shoulders. Alexander entered silently, leaning against the doorway. "You're stronger than you realize," he murmured. Jasmine turned to him, searching his face. "And you, are you different now?" He smiled faintly, eyes softening. "I've learned that some things in life aren't about control or power. They're about trust, courage, and connection. I think you've taught me that." For a long moment, they just looked at each other. Two people from completely different worlds, brought together by accident, circumstance, and now, by choice. The quiet was broken by the sound of Jasmine's phone buzzing again. Another headline, another story, another challenge. She picked it up, read the words, and felt a strange sense of determination rise within her. They don't know the half of it. Alexander noticed the shift in her expression and nodded approvingly. "Whatever comes next," he said, "we face it together. No secrets, no fear, just us." Jasmine smiled, finally feeling a sense of power amidst the chaos. Eli stirred, stretching in her arms, and she felt hope rise like a tide. "Together," she whispered, and in that moment, as the city lights shimmered outside the window, she realized that her life, messy, chaotic, unpredictable, was about to become something more than she had ever imagined. Because in a world that had tried to control her, expose her, and break her, Jasmine Harper had found strength, love, and an unlikely ally in Alexander Cross. The storm wasn't over, far from it. But now, for the first time, she didn't face it alone.